Hello and welcome to the TxDOT family. My name is Homer Diaz and I'm the Section Director for Human Resources, Ethics, and Employee Conduct Section. I'm also the department's Ethics Officer. This video presentation is going to briefly cover ethics, equal employment opportunity, otherwise known as EEO, and a bit about the department's workplace violence policies. First up, let's talk about ethics in TxDOT. As public servants, we have laws that regulate our conduct to a minimum standard. Additionally, TxDOT has an ethics policy that we, as employees, are required to follow. Whether you'll be in an office setting or out on a work site, you're representing TxDOT, and our work is open to public scrutiny. What is acceptable in the private sector may very likely not be acceptable as a state employee. Therefore, you need to know the expectations of how to act on behalf of the department. Failure to follow the department's ethics policy may lead to disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment. So what are your responsibilities as far as ethics is concerned at TxDOT? First, remember that you're required to take TxDOT's Ethics Policy Online Training, ETH 101, in the next 30 days, and again each year. The training will go through each provision and provide examples of what you can and can't do as a TxDOT employee. As part of the training, you'll be required to affirm that you understand and agree to follow the policy. We don't have time to go through the complete ethics policy, but it will be covered in more detail in ETH 101. But generally speaking, it covers 4 basic categories. 1. The acceptance of gifts and other benefits. 2. Different types of conflicts of interest, such as outside employment and familiar relationships. 3. The proper use of department resources. And 4. General professional conduct in the workplace. Please be aware that in addition to the ethics policy, you may also have conduct policies specific to your job, so speak with your supervisor about what other manuals or policies you should familiarize yourself with. You've been provided a copy of the current TxDOT Employee Conduct Handbook. This guide consolidates many of the department's policies concerning employee conduct in one easy-to-find location. We suggest finding the handbook directly on HRD's Crossroads webpage and bookmarking it. It is your responsibility to stay up to date on policy changes, and referencing the online version will help you do that. This online handbook also contains links that will direct you to the TxDOT manual that covers specific policies in more detail. If you have questions concerning ethics issues, feel free and email our department at ethics@txdot.gov. We will answer your questions as soon as we can. While we answer questions and provide advice concerning ethics and state ethics laws, investigations of potential violations of the department's ethics policy, fraud, waste, or abuse are investigated by the Compliance Division. If you see or suspect that this type of activity has occurred, please report it. You may report it to your supervisor, email the Compliance Division at compliance@txdot.gov, or submit a complaint through TxDOT Watch. All reports are confidential, and those reported through TxDOT Watch, which is a third-party vendor, may be done anonymously, either online or by calling the toll-free telephone number listed. Always remember that we work for the public, and bad decisions by our employees can affect the reputation of TxDOT. If you are in a situation where you're easily identifiable as a TxDOT employee, whether you're wearing a TxDOT shirt or badge, or especially if you are driving a TxDOT vehicle, it is important to assure that you are conducting yourself in a professional and ethical manner. We want to make sure that the public has a positive perception of TxDOT and all of its employees. Remember, once again, if you have any questions concerning ethics, please email us at ethics@txdot.gov. Moving on, let's talk about EEO, which stands for Equal Employment Opportunity. This refers to a set of federal and state laws that protect you from being harassed or discriminated against based on certain characteristics. These characteristics are called legally protected classes, which I will explain more about in a bit. You are not only protected by law, but also by TxDOT policy. Our section is responsible for investigating complaints of discrimination and harassment based on legally protected classes and certain types of retaliation at TxDOT. As a new employee, you're required to take Equal Employment Opportunity Training, entitled DEV 205, within the next 30 days, and a refresher every 2 years. The training will go into more detail than what we covered today. EEO laws and TxDOT policy protect you from discrimination which is unfair treatment due to one of the protected classes I previously mentioned. Unfair treatment is related to an employment action, including but not limited to hiring decisions, termination of employment, promotions, training opportunities, pay and benefits, and disciplinary actions. You are also protected from workplace harassment, which is a form of discrimination. Harassment is unwelcome conduct based on a protected class. This includes, but is not limited to, sexual harassment. Examples of harassment include, but are not limited to, telling off-color jokes concerning race, sex, disability, or another protected class, displaying sexually suggestive or racially insensitive pictures, using demeaning or inappropriate terms or epithets, like a racial slur, sexual advances or requests, discussing sexual activities, unnecessary touching or using indecent gestures, using crude language based on one of the protected classes. From a legal perspective, generally harassment has to be severe or pervasive enough to create a hostile working environment. But here at TxDOT, we hold our employees to a higher standard, because every TxDOT employee has the right to work in an environment free of harassment. Therefore, TxDOT policy prohibits harassment based on a protected class, even if it occurs 1 or 2 times, even if no one complains, even if coworkers say similar things, or even if everyone laughs at an obscene or offensive joke. It is important to realize that individual perceptions of and reactions to jokes may vary widely. What you consider funny and harmless horseplay may be offensive to somebody else. Therefore, it's important to be careful with the jokes you tell and the comments that you make. "I was only joking," or "I didn't mean it that way," are not defenses. A couple of last things to keep in mind are, this type of behavior is also prohibited outside of the office if you are on a work trip, out in the field, or at a work conference. A harasser can be a supervisor, a coworker, a client, or a customer. You've heard us say the phrase protected classes, so let's go briefly cover what those are. They'll be covered in more detail in your EEO learning. The protected classes include disability, race, color, national origin, sex, pregnancy status, age, religion, genetic information, military status, and citizenship or immigration status. Lastly, law and policy protect you from retaliation. This means that an employer can't fire, demote, harass, or take any employment action against an employee because they have filed a discrimination or harassment complaint in good faith, participated in a workplace investigation, or participated in another legally protected activity. If you are subject to or witness discrimination, harassment, or retaliation, please report it. You may report it to an appropriate supervisor, the compliance division, your human resources representative, or file a complaint directly with our section. If you wish to file directly with our section, please complete Complaint Form 1809, which can be found on HRD's Crossroads webpage and on TxDOT's eForm system. When filing a complaint, please clearly state your allegation. Also be sure to include why you feel you've been discriminated against and what protected class was the basis, why you feel you're harassed and what protected class was the basis, and why you feel you were retaliated against and what adverse action was taken. You should also provide specific examples, the names of witnesses, and any supporting documentation that you may have. Submit the completed complaint form to EEO@TxDOT.gov. TxDOT is an equal employment opportunity employer, and we want to ensure that everyone feels safe coming to work. If you feel you've been harassed or discriminated against because of a legally protected class, or being retaliated against for participating in a protected activity, or if you witness this type of behavior towards a coworker, please report it immediately. Contact an appropriate supervisor, the compliance division, your HR representative, or the Human Resources, Ethics, and Employee Conduct section. In addition to ethics and EEO issues, the Ethics and Employee Conduct section also handles issues related to workplace violence. The goal of the department is to create and maintain a safe working environment for all employees. The department does not allow or condone acts of violence or threats of violence by or against any persons while on duty, on TxDOT property or a work site, or while operating a state vehicle. Conduct prohibited by this policy includes, but is not limited to, making threatening comments or other threats of violence, causing physical injury to another person, hitting, damaging property, pushing, chasing, kicking, or holding or blocking the movement of another person, intentionally endangering another employee, stalking, or failing to conceal weapons and handguns or otherwise failing to follow the department's policies regarding weapons. The department will ensure that allegations are promptly addressed and appropriate actions will be taken. Even a single incident of conduct that violates the department's workplace violence policy may lead to disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment. As a new employee, you are required to take workplace violence, DEV 282, within 30 days of hire, and you're required to retake the course every 2 years as a refresher. If you feel that you've experienced or witnessed workplace violence that's directed at you or any TxDOT employee, please report it immediately. You should report it to an appropriate supervisor, an HR representative, or your district or division workplace violence manager. If you have any questions regarding workplace violence, please email us at workplaceviolence@txdot.gov. Thank you for your time.